Hi there! Welcome back to another video on my channel. Today we have another Writers Wednesdays. And this week we're going to be talking about character creation. And what does that mean? How do you do it? Tips, maybe? For me, this is the best part of writing stories because I love making characters, I love making people, I love bringing these people to life. So whether you also enjoy that or maybe you're struggling a little bit with that, hopefully I can give you some tips in this hopefully I can give you some tips and information to help make this process a little bit easier. So if you're interested in that, just keep on watching. Okay, character creation. Some of you may be starting authors, some of you may be seasoned authors, and you are trying to come up with really interesting and dynamic characters. And you're like, how the heck do I do this? So there's a couple different methods of how you can do this. Obviously, this is up to personal taste and style and whatever methodologies work for you and like organization and stuff. I've gotten so many like tips from even people commenting on these videos about like how they do it, and all that I think is helpful. So let me just kind of get into something that I feel like might be more attainable to certain people. And if this isn't you, you can obviously just like kind of skip over this section if you really want to. But I think a lot of people, when they first hear character creation, they think of Dungeons and Dragons or D&D, and they think of like, you know, class and race and like stats and points and like personality based off of this very technical character creation chart. I've heard this, and not to gender stereotype or whatever, because like clearly lots and lots and lots of women also play D&D, but I've gotten these comments. I've seen this more in men of like how they describe characters or how they come up with characters as they borrow from like D&D. I don't know if that's just a difference in like social conditioning or not, of like how we think of people. Obviously that is not like a hard rule or anything, but I'm just sharing my observations, and I find it interesting. I don't know, but yeah, you can clearly use like a method like D&D to obviously come up with character creation. So if you don't play D&D, that's basically like a fantasy role-playing game. I played like once. I am not a D&D aficionado. I've played once, and the first time I played, I was a dragonborn, so like a humanoid dragon person, and I was a bard, which those two don't normally go together, but you know. And I just was kind of wilding out and doing my own thing, and I was a lot more confrontational than my dungeon master thought I would be, but yeah, I was just kind of learning how to play, and just I wanted to make somebody who was interesting. So bards tend to be very charismatic. They tend to get what they want through words rather than actual fighting, which is hard for a dragonborn bard, because dragonborns, they're like more monstrous, and people be racist in D&D, and so they pick on all the dragonborns because they look scary. And normally bards are like good at seducing people too, so it was a weird dichotomy. But yeah, that's what I did. So yeah, you can obviously do character creation based on that, and like if you are writing a traditional European based fantasy or whatever, clearly that would work for you. That is a method of doing that, but that is not the only method of character creation, right? You could clearly do something more personalized, or more personalized. Like you can base people off of people you know and just be really secretive about it, which is something a lot of people do. You don't necessarily have to create somebody new out of thin air. This is something I like to stress to a lot of writers. Like a lot of times you don't just poof, something appears, right? You take in the world and you observe the world around you, and you might steal little bits and pieces of reality and put them into fiction or fantasy or whatever have you. So even if you're like at Starbucks one day and there's a person there in the line in front of you, and you happen to think they look really interesting, and you do this mental exercise of like trying to imagine like why they're there, what are they going to order, what are they going to do after they leave, how are they dressed, how do they carry themselves, like are they texting somebody? Are they on the phone with somebody? Who are they talking to? What is that conversation about? Like doing this kind of like guessing game. And it might seem to be really creepy and kind of stalkery, but like it's something I like to do. I like to play little games when I'm in public spaces. So one of my old games I used to play is, especially if I went to like a restaurant or something, was who's on a first date. And if you haven't played this game before, I really encourage you to do it because it's so funny once you get good at it about like picking apart people's behaviors when they're on a first date. Because especially for like heterosexual couples, like the man will always be dressed a lot nicer than, I mean, people get dressed up when they go on dates anyway, but a lot of times like the man maybe who'll bring like flowers or something, then you definitely know it's a first date because men don't bring flowers on the other dates. They just don't. I'm sorry, they just don't. Uh, or like if you see somebody like waiting there by themselves and they're checking their phone and looking up and looking around at the restaurant, they're probably met on Tinder and they're trying to find that person and they don't want to miss them, right? So yeah, it's like different games you can play like that. There's also the game, I think a lot of people play this because the more I talk about it out loud, I think more people play it than there's like, I know my husband does like, okay, could I beat this person in a fight? Which I don't know what that says about him, but he plays that game like, okay, could I beat this person in a fight? How would I exit through the space? And which I think could be a good practice if you're somebody who's writing like action or horror and you're thinking about setting and you're like, okay, well, what are the possible escape routes, right? Like, and how could I put that in a story and add that movement in a story? I also do the one of if like, especially when I'm on the train or the subway, if I'm in a subway car, I look around the people and I'm like, okay, if we were on a desert island, like who would do what? You know, who looks like they would do what? What role would these people play based on what I can perceive of them? So I encourage those exercises for you to imply, like, put in your daily life. And that way, like, when you're coming up with characters, you already kind of have, like, okay, I associate somebody who behaves this way with this kind of personality. And is that a correct correlation? Is that something that's just personal biases from me? Is this, if it's a correct correlation and this tends to happen, why does it tend to happen? And just highlight the why in that scenario. And I think that'll make your character have a lot more depth of coming up with the reason, like why they do the things they do. Likewise, I learned about this technique back when I was in college, and I was like an English major for like a hot minute. And there's this technique called a blazon that is in very, very traditional like medieval literature where you describe somebody from like head to toe, right? And it's supposed to be done in like romantic poetry. So like when talking about like the beautiful person or the beautiful woman, you describe them from head to toe, or like how you describe them says a lot about the character, which I tend to employ too. I think people underestimate the utilization of clothes in character design because those are conscious choices people are putting on to express their own identity. So I also think looking at clothes and what people choose to wear is very important when designing a character as well. You know, regardless of what gender they are. I think somebody who, you know, wears work boots every day and is going to be very different from somebody who makes it a point to own like a certain pair of sneakers in every color available for that specific pair of sneakers. You know what I mean? They're going to have different values of what's important and what's not important. They're going to have very different personalities. So just little things like that to really set a character off is like based on descriptions and descriptions that are conscious choices. Because, you know, we as a society, like I've watched so many videos on this too. It's really, really fascinating. If you want to hear more about this, like there's a content creator named Khadidra, and I can post her videos somewhere before, but she was talking about something that's called the angel effect, where we automatically associate beauty with goodness, and like how inherently that's kind of problematic. But it's like a symptom of like just wealth and privilege, right? Like we associate people who are beautiful to us to be like morally superior subconsciously than people who are like ugly, which is like, again, all about economics and just cleanliness, but like also like that's problematic because not everybody can afford to be put together all the time. Anyway, so that's also something to be mindful of when you're writing. I know I fall into that a lot, like we all do, like nobody's perfect, but it's just, or you might want to use that kind of stereotype to push a certain narrative about a personality. up to you, your decision. That's just an example. But I always find that the conscious choices of descriptions says more about the person than necessarily like them having like blue eyes or whatever, or like big ears. I don't know. That's just me. Anyway, yes. On the subject of that, I do think it's important for the characters to have multifaceted personalities, and obviously, like when you're reading at the beginning, you don't have time to flesh out somebody that way. But over time, you want to see character growth. You want to see more complex personalities. You want to see like what's going on with them, what makes them tick, why are they motivated to do the things they do. And this is where some advice I've gotten from other people like kind of click in. So some methods I've seen are like journaling as that person. So trying to sit in their shoes and just try to think about things and how they would respond to things, or even asking like question prompts. I'm sure you could probably find a lot online. I think they are online of like, okay, who is this character? What is their motivation? Are they going to have positive growth or negative growth by the end of the story? What is their main driving force behind why they choose the way they do? What's like a positive quirk about them? What's a negative quirk about them? Are they choosing to work on that, or are they just kind of like living living their daily lives? So yeah, you can get questions like that online. You could do the journaling thing. I've also seen people do visual boards, like especially if you work in storytelling for TV and like movies and stuff. A lot of scripting will be done on boards and sticky notes, and visuals will be added. You can also doodle people. I'm not the best artist. I do like to doodle, but I'm not the best artist. So for me, it's not a perfect way to do it. But if you are somebody who has more talents than I do, drawing might help, or even coming up with like a mood board of who they are. Love that kind of stuff. I'm not a Pinterest gal, but I love watching people make mood boards. Young people are so good at that too, like all the aesthetic mood boards, like, oh my god. So yeah, you could easily just make a mood board for that person. You don't even necessarily need to show anybody, but it could just be for your own private reference, and you don't have to just put people on there that you think look like your character, although you can pick a celebrity or something that looks like your character. You could also just put stuff on there that they may enjoy, scenery from places they live, like maybe your character grew up in a beach town and is very nostalgic about summertime regardless of tourists coming, but like ice cream stands in the summer, and like what does that say about them? Why are they so nostalgic for that place? What happened there? What don't they have anymore that they wish they did? Is it a sense of community, a sense of family? Is it just, overall happiness because now they depressed? I don't know. But yeah, you can do stuff like that. So mood boards are also super duper helpful. But yeah, I think I covered like a lot in a short amount of time. Let me know. Yeah, I think this is going to be a relatively short video. But let me know if you want or need any sort of extra help when doing character designs. You could also try to give them personality tests and see how they would answer if you're trying to define whether or not they're like more introverted or extroverted or whatever. There's plenty of personality tests that exist online too. That do that sort of thing. But regardless, that's a lot of advice I have for the video. If you have any other tips that you personally use, leave them in the comments down below for me, but for anybody else who watches this video. Like I said, writing it's hard, and it's a hard industry, and at the end of the day, I just want to like help people tap into their own creativity and feel like they have the tools to do these things, whether or not they want to make a career out of them or not. It's just, I feel like, especially now with the world and the state it is, people need these creative outlets to stay sane. And if I can help out, or if we can help out in any sort of way, we really should, because I love the online community that I've fostered both here online and my writing Instagram. That's at Writing with Cass. If you want to stay up to date with me, I post every day. Plug. Anyway, yeah, so I love the sort of community that I've cultivated on there, even though it's really small, and I just feel like writers are very, very helpful with one another, and I just want to pay it forward because I've definitely received a lot of help this past year. So if you're into that, feel free to like this video, comment down below, and share this video with a friend if you think they would find it helpful. And also subscribe to the channel. Please, 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 please subscribe to the channel. It would mean the world to me, and it would help me get these videos out there to help more people. So that would be great. And until next time, thanks. Bye.